who have heard about Botron so far? All right. Every one of you gets a little gift. Can I see the hands one more time? Oh, let me see my basketball skills, how good they are. All right. Woo-hoo. I got this one? All right. Cool. All right. So for the rest of you that you haven't heard about, after the presentation, you can get one of those too. So this is not a cat. It's not a bear. It's a lion. Because it has a little T-shirt has Botron Power Admin. Obviously, the lion, one of the most powerful animals on the planet. So as much as we like, some people like this to be cat, it's a lion. All right. So my name is Peter. I have a little bit of experience with Atlassian, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself just to understand where I'm coming from. Okay. All right. So I started a little bit later than CatWorks. I started in 2006. The company I was working at this time decided that we finally need something better than Excel. Okay. And we implemented Jira and Confluence. And guess who became the Jira and Confluence admin? It was me. Why? Because I was the guy who wanted those systems to be implemented the most. As much as I love Excel, I hate it when there's more than one person involved into that. Like one day I come and my spreadsheet have changed and I can't figure out why and who did that, etc. All right. Then in 2010, I started working at Serena Software. Who have heard about Serena? All right. So as you know, at that time, it was a competitor of Atlassian, right? They were recently purchased by Micro Focus, though, so they somewhat still competitors. I was the engineering leader for 3 of their products. About one first was like an agile tracking tool, similar to Rally and version 1 at the time. The second one was about release management, and the third one was a classic PPM product. So my personal technical competence, I have a lot of competence, a lot of knowledge in those 3 areas. And then in 2012, I decided to found Botron. And there is a funny story. I decided that in one of the user groups in the Bay Area, in Mountain View. I think it was in the LinkedIn office at that time. They just announced the marketplace. And in Serena, actually, because I knew Jira and Confluence before I started working in Serena, I knew how good they were as a product. The Serena products were not as good at all. And I have to deal with that on a daily basis. I was like, oh, if we can do something like Jira, it will be so much better, right? And at that time, I was I had a surgery of my knee, so I was staying at home, and I was bored to death. And I got this email: hey, there is a new user group in Mountain View. There is free beer and pizza. You know, I decided to go there. Nick from the marketplace, and if you remember, Dave from Atlassian, they were there, and they were talking to different people how good. How different people who have just a good idea can turn it into business. And I spoke with Dario from Bricket, who gave me a lot of very interesting tips. And in 2013, we launched Configuration Manager for Jira. Any one of you who have used this product? All right, you already got one of these, so you're not getting a second one. So that's a little bit of experience with Atlassian, and now 2019. We have several products on the marketplace, and we do have services which we work with some of the Fortune 100 companies. All right. Okay, so let's talk a little about Jira adoption. Okay, as we know, it's bottom up. Like I was the one who was wanting to get Jira, and I became the admin. So quite often, the first time Jira starts is under someone's desk. That's an actual real picture I was able to find. Okay, that's from my early days. The only thing I cannot remember was Jira on the left or on the right server. So I think it was on the right, but I could be wrong. All right. Then at some point, some people in the company realized, hey, this is pretty good. Why don't more people start using that? So Jira becomes the tool of choice for tracking of multiple teams, right? I'm sure most of you have gone through the same steps. Some of you may still have Jira under the desk. Hopefully not. Okay. The third one, like when the management understands that there is data there and they want reports at some point, is getting more visible, and becomes like, hey, we're gonna adopt this company-wide. We're gonna have reports and things gonna be sent over email, and I want to get notifications. And if you don't screw up the notification schemes, your CEO is gonna be still happy. Okay. And at some point, companies are trying and starting to understand what a mature usage of the tool is. We're going to talk a lot about this in a moment. Now, let's take this adoption from a couple of different perspectives. First, who is the administrator who has the responsibilities to administer the server? Well, sometimes it's a volunteer, just like I was. Okay, right? When things become a little bit more widely used, let's say there are multiple teams, well, it's usually still a team member, but now more people know who this member is, right? Yeah, it's John or Thomas, like popular German name. Now, when there is a company-wide adoption, this is where we typically see a professional admin to come into place, right? It's recognized that this is a may not be mission critical, but pretty important system for the company, which needs proper resource allocation, right? This is where we start getting dedicated application admin. It may not be a full-time. They can still do, I don't know, SharePoint or Active Directory, but this is where we start seeing some maturity into the administration part. And usually when there is a mature use, there's a lot of management involved. We're going to talk about governance, we're going to talk about different policies and best practices, but definitely in this point, management is very much involved because typically this is a mission critical system. Well, the largest system that we work right now has over 7 million issues. And now they're hitting some limits with data centers, so now they're thinking about splitting that system into several federated instances, right? So they manage pretty much everything in the organization inside Jira. You can imagine how valuable and important the data is. Okay, let's take a look at this from another angle. Okay, let's take a look from practices perspective. Okay, so a volunteer, typically there is no practices involved. Let's get it up and running. Let's try to see if that's going to be useful and valuable for us, right? Then when you get to the multiple teams, we're starting to see, hey, team 2 wants this slight change in this workflow for the third time in the last 2 weeks. And then the person say, hey, because I'm actually coding this work, I'm usually a programmer or a QA, then, hey, can you send me an email? So now starting to see some change management over email, or hopefully not messengers and stuff like this. Hopefully not on paper, definitely. Okay. Then when we start getting company-wide adoption with professional dedicated administrators, we're seeing a real implementation of change management, typically a Jira project. TSP, anyone who can think of what TSP stands for? Come on, I got one of those guys ready for you guys. All right, test staging production practice, which is the key to implement the professional level of change management, right? When you're giving a change request, you don't just go straight into production and all of a sudden your CEO start getting all those emails, right? You first try it on the server, then you stage it to see if there's going to be something wrong with it, and then do it in production. This is where we see typical introduction of maintenance windows and some sort of a structure around that work, right? Someone have some critical work, well, you're doing RIM, so no, they cannot do this work. So people are starting to introduce maintenance windows. And then when we get into the mature usage, we're seeing a whole bunch of group of practices which goes under the umbrella of governance, practices for governance and scaling. Okay, so this is the adoption model, because a lot of other products are not like this. ServiceNow is not like this. Serena products that I was working on earlier, they're not like that, right? IBM products are definitely not like this. You're not going to let anyone put something under their desk, which you pay, a couple $1 million, right? Because the price point there is completely different and drives that. Because with Jira, you can start with simple $10. I'm not sure how much is in Europe. Is it still $10 or 10 euros? Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, you definitely, in this case, you're starting under someone's desk, right? You're definitely not putting, nice data center and infrastructure around $10 investment. in the beginning. Okay, so historically, we focus to provide best practice for governance and scaling of companies which are somewhere in this area, right? When they want to do better job of managing their Jira. This is where this is the mission of Botron, and this is where we dedicate our focus to help with our knowledge and experience. Now, at this point, we have a product called Configuration Manager for Jira, which some of you have heard about. So these are the practices that we currently fully support, and I can probably say that we're the best tool for that. So first, test staging production, promoting automatically changes of projects between different servers. Repeated work, we know that it's error-prone and time-consuming. With our product, with a push of a button, you can set a set of new changes to a project from a test server to your staging server and later on to production with full visibility and transparency. Project migration, the adoption model, one thing I missed to mention is because of the adoption model being bottom-up, guess what? You can end up having multiple Jiras under multiple desks. Very common. So at some point, your company, when we started the company-wide adoption, realizes, oh, let's start using it, but which one? This department has one Jira server, the other department has another, and there's a town on which the IT spent. It's more common than you can ever imagine. My guess is based on the data that we have is probably that around close to 10% of the companies worldwide are in that situation. And we're talking about probably several thousand companies are in that situation. For one company, we helped them merge 19 servers. 19. I'm not sure how this is in German, but in English sounds really big. Right? So the project migration practice and use case is very common. With our tool, you can implement project templating, which is one of the best practice for governance. You don't do crazy stuff with each and every project because your reporting is going to get screwed up. One of the workflow has a terminal status of done, the other has terminal status of closed. So now when I write my reports, I have to understand all these things which constantly change. Project templating is one of the key of having a well-managed and scalable server. True project archive. Can someone tell me why we put the word true there? Not just project archive? No. Anyone? Well, Jira now has project archiving, right? We've heard about this. Why we think that our archiving is true and theirs is not true, like a false archiving? Yes. They're actually not archiving anything. The data still stays there. They just make it in a way that it's not going to slow down your server. They basically remove it from the indexes. So your searches and all the other stuff are not looking into that data. Okay? But the data is still there. It's not being archived. So in case of some, disaster or some negative event, you're still going to lose the data. So with our tool, you can do a true project archive to another archiving server, hopefully in a different data center or on a different location. All right. So our mission that we are executing for a little bit and is going to span this year and next year is called the Future of Jira Administration. We're going to take a look at the different things which impede administrators to do a superb job and then provide the proper tooling for that. Next level Jira administration we see as a tool that allows you to be efficient. It allows you to do a lot more than you can do now. Allows you to be very accurate of your actions and not to help you prevent any errors. Use cases that we want to cover, I mentioned the word change management. Another thing which goes with change management is impact. Every time you're making a change, you're introducing impact. And right now, the administrators don't have a good way to assessing that impact when they're making the change. We're going to see that in a moment. Performance optimization. So who of you was at the summit at Vegas just last month? Okay. You only? Wow. We got to make the tickets Germany to US cheaper, I guess. So every day on there were at least like 4 sessions during the days when they say, optimize your service, limit the number of custom fields, remove unused custom fields, do this, do that. And on a single time, no one said how you do this. Okay? Right now, this is done via scripting and vast SQL. The amount of time it takes you to understand how a certain field is used and whether you can delete it or do something with it is measured in hours and days. It's not measured definitely in minutes and not in a small number of hours. Corruption-free. This is my favorite one. So can anyone tell me if you do a very simple and not volatile operation, such as rename, of a custom field, what's going to happen after you do this rename? If you have the regular Jira UI. Great answer. Nobody knows. That's exactly what I mentioned earlier. We're trying to help administrators do more. But let's say you're a very gutsy person, let's go and do it. And then we deal with the consequences, right? Do you know anything that's going to happen, something bad if you rename it? Anyone else? All right, it's yours. The JQL. Every single JQL, which by the way powers the dashboards, which powers most of the reporting, and the JQL powers as well the Agile boards. So at some point, if you rename a field which is including those JQLs, all of this thing is going to stop working. And they're going to stop working in a way that you're not going to even see an error. They're just going to stop returning the right data, which is very helpful, right? Okay. What's going to happen if you delete that custom field? Have anyone ever dared to delete a custom field? Well, all the JQL is going to be broken and some more. For example, let's say you created this beautiful workflow. Hopefully you guys can see in one of the next sessions. And this workflow uses some workflow automation, like post functions, conditions. And we know that quite a lot of those automation refers to custom fields. Let's take this data from this custom field and do something else with it. Well, guess what? All those post functions and conditions are going to stop working. And again, there's not going to be error besides if you look at the log file very closely. Like before you go to sleep, let's scroll to the log file and see if we can go to sleep, well. I'm going to sleep well. Well, this is what we call corruption-free. Because with Configuration Manager, we're trying to move configuration from one server to another. On every single server we see out there, we see those corruptions in the configuration. You probably don't want us to move a bad workflow from your staging to your production server and then break your production server, right? We have a tool embedded in Configuration Manager that checks that, reports that, but then you have to go and fix them, right? You worked, you did your job as a Atlassian user guide told you. You go to the custom fields, you click on edit, and you got the form, and you change it and click OK. Anything wrong so far? No, but yeah. The consequences of that actually pretty bad, just the way that Jira has been engineered. And I've opened personally a whole bunch of tickets for that, and we know what happened. So we try to put things in our hands and provide more tools so that actually the administrators can become more powerful and they can do more stuff. Okay. The last thing we have here on this slide is usage. So, can any one of you guys knows how many add-ons you have on the system that work? Maybe if you go to administration add-ons manage, you can see all of the enabled ones, right? But do you know how each one of them particularly is being used at all? So do you know if you need to renew your licenses or assess upgrade risk? That's one of the most difficult things you can do now. Okay, there's no easy way. And again, people are trying to look at the database. The CRM has data, etc. Again, it takes hours and hours and days of advanced scripting and SQL. So the answer of all those things is called Botron Power Admin. It is a function or separate. It's a standalone add-on which is as well bundled with Configuration Manager. So all Configuration Manager users got it as a feature there, but it's available as standalone add-on as well. We like to think about this that you as an admin will experience Jira like never before. Now, this is how the page of Power Admin looks like. It's a single search page for absolutely every configuration that exists in Jira. You need to go to other pages, you need to wait them for load up. It's one single search page, very much like we use browsers nowadays. We can see this is a search result page. You can see all the objects. For example, these are custom fields. You can see the type. You can see even the ID. How revolutionary is that you can see the ID of a custom field in plain text? People who are admins probably know what I'm talking about, right? All right? That's a revolution by itself, right? And very quickly you can see, hey, activation date is used by 404 projects right here. Maybe I should not mess up with this one. Okay, but it gets even better. Let's say sorry. Maybe. All right. So as you can see here, we're going to talk a lot about custom fields, such as they're so important, right? You see, we have certain filters here on the top of the table. So the first of them is you can see, hey, I'm moving this project. When I archive this project, show me the custom fields used by this project. So you can pick one or many of those projects. Or if you're looking into performance improvements, you can do, hey, show me the fields which are not used by any project. Like you can click none. And very quickly you're going to see those custom fields. Okay. Something looks wrong. Another filter is that you can look by type. I want to see all the custom fields coming of a specific type. Maybe this is a add-on type. You know, I want to see what they are, how they're being used. You can search by global context as well, and you can. Strange. There is another filter which is not shown up here, which allows you to see any custom fields without data or that haven't been updated in the last 1 year. Okay, because those custom fields are usually candidates to either be merged or be deleted. If you're not using something, why keep it there and make your server work worse? Okay. In addition, after you narrow your selection down to the fields that you're interested in, we will give you certain bulk actions. So a best practice is before you delete the custom field to prefix it and leave it like this, marked for deletion for some time. See if someone's going to complain. So you can do this on a bulk level without writing SQL. Next thing, you can merge custom fields. You can replace one custom field with another, or you can do a bulk delete. And guess what? Our delete, or whether it's a single object or a bulk delete, is not going to break any of the places where this custom field is being used. None of the JQLs, none of the workflows, none of the dashboards, because we know filters, custom fields are selections part of the dashboard garage. None of those places, because we know all its usages. And here's how we know. This is a drill down into a specific custom field called user picker with an ID 10402. So you can see a quick summary where this thing is being used. Screens, agile boards, workflows, filters, each security scheme, dashboard, notification scheme, permission schemes. Since we know that, whether it's a rename and delete, we provide you safe actions, which is not going to introduce any corruption to the configuration. In addition, we will provide you a one thing called copy. How revolutionary is that? You just created this screen, and now you want a similar screen with a few changes. Guess what? You have to do it from scratch now. With a new function, you can quickly copy basically any object, whether it's a custom field, workflow, screen, etc. Okay? So further down from this summary view, you have the list of each and every one of those objects here. So as you can see, we have screens. If we scroll further down, we're going to start seeing workflows, filters. You can use that to directly configure those objects, or you can drill further down to start navigating and exploring your configuration much faster without needing to go to different pages. One of the things that we see as a bigger problem is on a reference hardware, Jira loads 2,000 custom fields in a reference card of a medium Jira server for about 2.5 minutes. Regardless of the size of your configuration, we tested with over 5,000. We are usually under half a second. Okay. So this is the usage that I explained. These are the dependent objects, which you can use as navigation, etc. So now we're going to take a quick look into a change management corruption-free use case. So I already talked about the rename. So this is the UI that we have seen when we changed the risk field. And this is a screen from from Integrity Check, which is the module inside Configuration Manager, which detects those corrupted configuration. This is how the report looks like. 3 objects refer to missing custom field risk. It's not missing, it's just being renamed to something else. And via the regular UI, Jira did not do a good job of doing it nice. So as you can see, filters and boards, for example. If we look at this board, this swim lane is not going to work, basically. Okay. If we do the rename via Power Admin, basically there's not going to be any integrity errors. Let's take a look at the configuration optimizations. So we can filter based on a global context, as I mentioned. You can filter based on the actual issues. So you can say, I want to see custom fields which haven't been updated in the last 1 year, and you can control this time period. Same thing you can do with the number of issues that haven't been used. Quite often people try something and leave it behind in the system, and just because there's no easy way to delete it, no one deletes anything. So that's how we end up with a messy configuration. So we talked about the bulk action. Let's take a look at the usage use case, which is by far my favorite, because it solves not just certain answers which are only interested by administrators. Hey, what's the risk of upgrading this add-on? We know how scary it is to upgrade Jira, right? Twice scary is to upgrade add-ons, because very few of the vendors have, as much as we may not like Atlassian procedure, they do have procedures in place and they work most of the time, right? Some of the vendors don't even have that. So similarly, from the search screen, you can pick an app, add-on, plugin, whatever you guys want to call it. I still call them add-ons. And when you drill down to a specific add-on, in this case, this is one of ours called Issue Matrix. You can see that there are 2 custom fields using 506 projects. You can see what those fields are. You can see there it is. Actually, hey, this one is not used anywhere, so we can just go and delete it from right there. Very simple, very powerful, everyday tasks. So Power Admin right now is available as a standalone free add-on, because we're still working to cover absolutely all the objects that exist in Jira and provide all the functionality. Some of the screens that you saw actually mocks that our development team is working towards. So right now we're close to the end of version 1. We're adding more and more objects with every sprint. With version 2, we're going to add those bulk actions. And in version 3, we're going to add dashboard to show some of the most common searches in a nice way so people can quickly access this data. One of the things that I forgot to mention, one of the key objects that we're working right now, and I didn't have this here in presentation, are users and groups. So you're able to see what are the stuff that a user owns, and you can even change the ownership. This is another thing that right now is extremely difficult to do. Typically, when someone leaves the company, none of their private filters, boards, etc. is accessible, and you have to go and dig in deep into the database, right? But specifically the app usage answers one question, which is, I'm going to go back here a little bit, which is related to financials. Shall we renew our license? And that's why this is pretty important, because there are budgets involved, not just making the life of the administrator easier. Okay, that's pretty much it.